It was probably about 3 years ago. I led worship here at this church. I was filling in, and after that, I went to Cracker Barrel. So my wife and I drove separate, and I went there to get a table ahead of her, and I was sitting there by myself because she was meeting up with some family, and they were going to meet us there. I was at this big table, and I see this gentleman walk in, and I have met him before and have talked to him a little bit before. He was kind of an acquaintance. He was the worship minister at the Westland Church, and his name was Ryan Linton. So there was Ryan, and then Lacey. I kind of knew her because my mother-in-law was her cheer coach for a while, and I was debating, I was kind of like, should I say hi? Should I, and then I thought, nah, and I didn't say hi. So it was, it would have been real superficial, like, hey, how you doing? Good and good, and then that would have been, silly. But anyway, I think back to that time now, and I think that's really weird because, Ryan is a big part of my life. I see him every day. I enjoy working with him, and we have this friendship now, and we have grown closer, over the time that I've worked here. You can see, we lead worship together sometimes on that slide. So we'll lead worship together. Sometimes I'll fill in for him when he's on vacation. He likes me so much, he even let me be in his, Christmas family photo. So you can see that. Dale does not look very happy, but there I am, so. And then even closer than that, he likes me so much, he let me be on his album with him. And that was really nice of him. And then not only does he know me, but he knows my family. He knows my in-laws. He knows my kids. And when my father-in-law, Junior, is going to take the kids on a ride on the lawnmower, Ryan will climb up and he goes for a ride with them. So but here's the thing, this is the truth. Ryan is my friend, we have a friendship now, and before he was kind of an acquaintance. Now, because he's my friend, I could do stuff like this to him. I know he's going to get me back one day, and that's okay. But a relationship makes it easier to approach somebody, right? A relationship is what you want. Now, there are many churches, I would say, and many people across the world that, they come to church and they do the things that the Bible would say, and it's kind of like a ritual, but they don't have this relationship with Jesus, and then that is called religion. Religion is different than the relationship. A religion could be good, but you want Jesus and you want that. In its purest form, James 1:27 says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Now, if you ask somebody today, if somebody says to you, hey, what religion are you? They're not necessarily asking you, how many orphans or widows you're taking care of. They're asking, what rituals do you do when they ask religion? So religion and relationship are different. We need both. We need Jesus, and Jesus will help us with the religion part. There's a guy named Nicodemus we're going to look at today, and Nicodemus was one of the Pharisees. He helped interpret the law, he helped enforce it, and we see that he comes in contact with Jesus, and something changes about him. So the first thing that we see Nicodemus do is, I believe he was searching. And this is in John chapter 3, verse 1. It says, now there was a Pharisee, a man named Nicodemus, who was a member of the Jewish ruling council. He came to Jesus at night and said, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God. For no one could perform the signs you were doing if it wasn't for God with you. So here comes Nicodemus, and he goes to Jesus, and he's searching for something. Now, he is a religious leader, okay? So, if you think about Nicodemus, the Pharisees at that time were very rigid. They cared more about rules than they did people. And they would even add to the law sometimes and make it hard to follow. So, if the law was, you can't eat cookies past midnight, they would add to that and say, well, let's say that you can't drink milk past 5 p.m., you can't eat chocolate chip cookies past 7 p.m., and then at midnight you can eat no cookies at all. That'd make it kind of hard to eat cookies, right? So, it made it hard to follow the law. They didn't care about people. They more cared about rules. So then here comes Nicodemus. mean, what would you say? Like his life has been dedicated to following these rules. His life has been dedicated to trying to keep these rules and enforce these rules. And then he comes along, Jesus. And I think that he sees something different in Jesus. You see, if you think about the guys that he hung out with, the other religious leaders, they were rigid. And then he sees Jesus that claims to be the Messiah as a loving God and not rigid to people, but he actually cares for them. So one of my favorite speakers, he said that when he was saying when he was little, there was this thing called the 9 nasties. And if you could avoid the 9 nasties, like you were a good Christian. Like in the 9 nasties were some of these things, like if you didn't curse, if you didn't gamble, if you didn't smoke, if you didn't drink, if you didn't listen to rock and roll, if you didn't go to the theater, then you'd be considered a good Christian. Now, these things can be damaging, but they don't have to be. Like if I'm playing pig with Frank and I say, bet you $5 I'll hit this shot, and I hit it and he gives me $5. That's different than me going out to the boat and blowing my life inheritance, It's different. Now here's the thing, you can do these things, you can keep these things, but just because you follow these things and you keep these things doesn't mean you're a good Christian. It's the relationship with Jesus that makes you a good Christian. And some of you might have come from places like that. Some people that are very close to me. I know that they went to a church where, and they went to this church for a long time, and they would say, women should not cut their hair. And women should not wear makeup. Now, the ladies that I knew, they did cut their hair and they did wear makeup, but they did love Jesus because I know their heart. Now, the people at this church would make them feel like they couldn't come to Jesus. Like they were not worthy to raise their hand in worship because they cut their hair and they wear makeup and they do things like that. And that's ridiculous. They were pushing them away from Jesus instead of bringing them to him. And I grew up in a religion where, if you got saved, you met Jesus and you woke up one day and you stumped your toe and you said a cuss word, God would come and he'd cross your name off the book of life. And then the next Sunday, if you come to the altar, then he'd write it right back in. It was kind of a on and off kind of thing. And that's not how it works. So, and I want you to understand, I'm not saying that we shouldn't follow the Bible. John 13, 34, and 36 says, a new commandment I give to you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. Now, here's the thing, if you pull that up, so Jesus, when he comes along, he gives a new commandment. And when we look at the 10 commandments that is getting ready to come up on the screen, we'll see that, so over here is God and over here is man, all right? So, here's the deal. Jesus didn't come to get rid of these, but if you love one another, it's easier to follow these. If you love one another, if you love God, okay, you're not going to make any idols, right? If you love God, you're not going to worship other gods. If you love God, you're going to keep the Sabbath. You're not going to misuse God's name if you love him. If you love each other, which says man, if you love your mother and father, you're going to honor them, right? If you love somebody, you're not going to kill them. That'd be crazy. You're not going to commit adultery. If you love the person. Jesus didn't come to do away with these, but Jesus came and he introduced love in this, and it makes it easier to follow because of the love that we have for each other and for God. So it's not like following a contract. I remember, and you guys, if you think back, or maybe this happened last year, but I remember Courtney and I bought our first house. We came to this big table, and there's papers everywhere, okay? And we have to sign them. Yeah. So, the first paper I'm really looking at, and I'm thinking they're not going to pull one over on me. They're not going to make me pay extra or anything else. I'm reading it, and then I read the next one. And then by the third one, I was like, I just don't care. I start signing, throwing stuff everywhere. It could have said that they get my second-born child, and I would have no clue. I was just signing those papers, and at the end, I have a piece of the American dream, right? I have entered a relationship with a mortgage company. And if everything goes right and I do everything like I should, then that relationship is good. If I pay when I should, I get to stay in that house. But as soon as I don't, it doesn't work anymore. But Jesus, when he talks about in the Bible our relationship, they describe it as a marriage contract. So when you get married, like you say, for richer, for poorer, and you go through that, I'm going to give you all my heart, I'm going to be with you forever, and then you sign one paper and it's done, right? And then there's rules that you follow for each other because you love each other. My wife and I, we moved into this one house. It's the only time we ever had one bathroom. It's one bathroom in this whole house. She calls me and says, hey, I have found a shower curtain, to decorate the bathroom. And I was like, well, cool. And I was thinking, like lovely shade of maybe white or something, I don't know. And this is the one that she picked out. If you could go to the next slide, that's it. So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, so how am I going to take a shower with that or shave when that's there? So all right, go ahead and get it. And she got it. So I'm thinking when we're putting out the paint for the walls, it was like a nice shade of tan. Would be, she said, I like the bathroom pink. And I thought, you get pink bathroom with that shower curtain. And I did it. I let her do it. And even that same year, for our Christmas, she was in this kind of style, that our Christmas tree, she went and bought decorations, and it was a black high heels and poodles. And we had this, so anyway, she did that because I love her. Whatever. That was fine. I love her, so let her do that. And I did not say, hey, listen, I'm going to let you get that shower curtain, but here's what I expect. Every day, you better fix me a peanut butter pie at 5 o'clock, or, I'm going to take that shower curtain down, because love doesn't work like that. I love her. I did that for her because I loved her. I didn't love her because I expected it. Sometimes we have this, we contract with God. We say, I'm going to do some things for you, God. I'm going to bring my Bible. I'll even read it some. I'm going to come to church. I'm going to give 10%. And because of that, I expect, health, long life, good kids, white picket fence, all those things. But that's a contract. That's not really relying on God. That's not really having a relationship with Him. And Nicodemus and other Pharisees, they fasted, and they prayed, and they did those things. And all those things are important. And here's the thing, I hope you give. When the offering plate comes around, I hope you give. But I hope you give not because you don't think this church can go on without your giving. And I hope you don't give because someone is looking. I hope you give because you are passionate about Jesus and you know that this church can help build the kingdom. And when you pray, I hope that you do. But I don't hope you pray because someone's looking. Because you're at a restaurant, someone might hear you. I hope you pray because you have a relationship with Jesus and you want to talk to Him. And I hope that you serve. Not serve so you can feel good about yourself. Not serve so people can see you. But you serve because you're passionate about other people and helping them, because you know God loves them, and so do you. So he was searching. And then we see he came to Jesus. So it says, Jesus replied, "Verily, truly, I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again." He says, how can someone be born if they are old? Surely they cannot enter a second time in their mother's womb to be born. And Jesus answered, I tell you, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless they are born of the water and the Spirit. Flesh gives birth to flesh. Spirit gives birth to spirit. So Nicodemus comes to Jesus. He comes at night. He doesn't want anybody to see him, because he doesn't want his standing in the community to be diminished. And he asks Jesus this, and he starts telling him of the things he can do to get close to the guy standing right in front of him. Nicodemus, you can see he doesn't understand a little bit, because he's starting to talk about, how I'm old, how can I be born again? And Jesus starts talking to him. Jesus cuts to the heart of the matter, and Nicodemus becomes a man who always had the right answers to a man that's always asking the right questions. The conversation continues in 13. It says, no one has ever gone into heaven except the one who's come from heaven, the Son of Man. He's talking about himself. Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man will be lifted up. And how will he be lifted up? He'll be lifted up on a cross. It says that everyone who believes may have eternal life in him. And then I wish I could have been there to hear this. This is the first time he goes over John 3:16. He says it to Nicodemus. It comes out of Jesus' mouth. He says, for God so loved the world, that he gave his only Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. Then he says, for God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. And in this, like, if you're Nicodemus, this changes everything. You see, you have the Messiah. You have God's Son telling you that this God is a God of love. So much that he sent his Son to die for Nicodemus and to die for those people that Nicodemus saw unworthy to see Jesus. They become his sons and daughters. My daughter, Chesney, the house that we moved in now in Cordon, we moved in, it was freshly painted. It had a brand new floor on it, okay? It was like that vinyl planking. It looks like wood or whatever. Beautiful. Everything's good. Don't have to do very much, okay? One day, she's sitting on the floor. She's painting her toenails. Okay, she's not supposed to do that because you can get paint on the floor. You know, she don't have a towel or nothing underneath. And I know what paint can do, but I didn't know what fingernail polish remover could do to that floor until she spilt it. She spilt it, and as she wiped it off, there's this big white spot right in the middle of our kitchen. You know, and I'm looking at that, and I'm starting to get mad, and I'm thinking, you know, I get mad at Chesney. I say, we can't ever have nice things, you know. I mean, here we go. And then Chesney starts crying, and she says this. She goes, well, I guess you don't want me to be your daughter anymore. And then she said, I guess you don't like me. And then she says this, seriously. She goes, I guess you just want to take me outside and kill me. And as she's saying that, like, I'm thinking, like, how did we get here? Like, I mean, you know, and I'm thinking, like, you know, I'm not going to take you outside and kill you. I could take you outside and leave you somewhere maybe, but like, I'm not going to take you outside. I'm not going to kill you. I mean, like, so, like, I have this talk with her, and I say, like, Chesney, here's the thing, like, you're my daughter, like, and that's it. Like, that's how it goes. Like, when you were born, you're my daughter, and that will always stay true. I don't care what you do. I don't care how dirty you get. You know, if she's one day, God forbid, the prodigal daughter, and she leaves and she's doing stuff she's not supposed to, I love her and I want her to return home. Here's the thing. Like, when he's talking about the water and the Spirit, like, when someone is baptized, and I've told you this before, when someone's baptized, they're dunked, you know, and then they come out of the water. Everybody, it's the same thing. They do one thing. As soon as they come up, what is it? They breathe, right? That old life is going away, and then they're brought up, and they breathe like this new life in, and they are children of God. They're his sons and daughters. And nothing can take that away. You know, they might be able to move away from Jesus, but he loves them, and he longs for a relationship with them. And I also had to tell Chesney, look, you know, I know that there's rules here. I know that the floor, you know, there's a reason why we said that, because now the floor is damaged. You know, there's a reason why I tell Chesney, hey, I don't want you to play out in the street. Not because I want to spoil her fun, because I don't want her to die. And when we start to understand God's character and we understand like who he is, we understand that the things that are written in the Bible is not coming out of a policeman that wants to spoil our fun, but it's coming out of a loving God that cares for us. And that's why we follow. It's not a contract, it's a relationship. And the thing is, too, like, we've all broken the floor. Haven't we? Like, we've all messed up. We've all done stuff wrong. And this changes everything. It says that God came for the Jews and the Gentiles. Like, he came for the world. The people that Nicodemus would look at as the least, God came for. I was 15 years old, and I had just got saved at camp. Okay? I was going to church. I love this church, but one day, there was a kid in youth group with me. His name was Joe. Right? Joe didn't have a whole lot of money. He was poor. Joe would sit at a table by himself during lunch, but he came to youth group and he got saved. It's pretty awesome. Joe started bringing his grandma. Cool. Then Joe started bringing his sister. Well, his sister was somebody known in the community that didn't have a good reputation. She was in her 20s. She was always in town. I don't know if she's on drugs. I don't know what she was doing. She didn't dress very, good sometimes. And I know that she started coming to church. And one day after church, I heard some of the people that I know as religious people that were supposed to be leaders in our church, talking about this lady. And I was only 15, but I knew what they were saying was not right and it wasn't good. They were talking about how she dressed. They were talking about how, why is she at this church? And that's wrong. I mean, the very people that should be showing her Jesus was pushing her away. That's not Jesus. That's not who he is. He wants that lady. He wants her. You don't come to church saved. You don't come to church with everything together. No, you come with a mess, and you come messed up. And then you know what we do? We work through that mess together. But we've all broken it. And we want others to come to Jesus because he loves them like he loves us. And lastly, he was able, Nicodemus, to discover something better than religion. It was Jesus. John 19:38-40. So we see Nicodemus another time where he stands up, talks to some of the Pharisees. And here we're looking at the burial of Jesus. So it says, later Joseph asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. Now Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, because he feared the Jewish leaders, he was being a disciple in secret. So Nicodemus comes, they get his body from Pilate. And it says this, Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds. Taking Jesus' body, the two of them wrapped it with the spices and strips and linen. This was accordance to Jewish burial customs. So they took Jesus' body, they wrapped him in all this stuff that he brought, they put him in a tomb. And I want you to understand this, like they gave him a royal burial. I mean, you didn't do that for somebody that was crucified on a cross. But Nicodemus did. Because I think that he had made an impact in Nicodemus' life. You know, maybe he said to Pilate, like, you know, if he wasn't treated like a king when he was alive, he's going to be treated like a king during his death. And Nicodemus starts to understand what a relationship is instead of rules. We went to Disney probably about 2 years ago, and when we went, if you've ever been to Disney, you know this, it's crowded all the time. So we went, and not only was it crowded, it was hot, like we were standing on the sun, okay? Like, so crowded, hot, and it was so crowded that the Fast Pass lines, we had a Fast Pass, was 45 minutes long. And we had all of our kids with us. Junior, my father-in-law, was with us. And as we're standing in line, we're waiting forever to get there. And we're just burning up hot. You're around all these people. And I knew this was coming. At one point, Paisley looks up at Junior, and she says this, "Hold me." And I have a picture of it. Like, he picks her up, he holds her, and like for each ride, you know, he would hold her. It'd be like an hour long, you know, he would hold her. And if you've ever held a kid, they get heavy and it gets really hot really fast, especially when you're waiting in line at an amusement park. But here's the thing, he did it, and you could see him here. This is on a ride, but like she's about to fall off. He's like hanging on to her for dear life, and she won't let go. And here's the thing, like, why did she make that request to him? I mean, why would she think that he's going to do that? Because that's her papa. Because he loves her, and she knows that. There's a relationship there. She knows when things are tough, when things are hard, she can say, "Hold me, pick me up, help me," and he'll do it. And he did. And wouldn't it be great, like, if the people of God were like that? Like, if when we're going through storms, we're going through hard times, we have a relationship with Jesus enough that we know that we can ask him to help us, to pick us up, to carry us. You know, religious people would say sometimes, like, you're not worthy. You can't ask him to pick you up because you're not holy enough or you're not good enough. But a relationship with Jesus says that you can approach him, and you don't have to be afraid because he's your Father. And today, I don't know what you're going through, but here in a second, I'm going to pray. And I'm going to be in the back. Frank's going to be in the back. There'll be some ladies in the back if you need to pray. Maybe today you're here and you have felt like you are not worthy to come to Jesus. Maybe you have encountered these religious people that have painted a picture of Jesus that is not real and is not true, that you want to know him. You know, maybe you're facing things today. Maybe it's in your marriage. Maybe I don't know what's going on in your life, but like we want to pray for you. We want you to know that you're worthy. Like you can come to Jesus. He wants you to come to him. We are a family. We're willing to walk with you. Maybe you've never been baptized. You don't know Jesus. Like you can do that today. Maybe you want to join a church family and you have all this mess and you want to walk with us. Like we want your mess. We want to walk with you.